Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Yak Gadget for all your fine quality kayak fishing accessories. Go to yakgadget.com. Pelican cases, coolers, and lighting. Go to pelican.com. And the 153 Bait Company for all your hard and soft bait needs. Go to the 153angler.com. So join with me as together we dive into the tips and techniques that will help make us better anglers out on the water. Welcome back to the Bass Fishing for Noobs segment here on the Paddle and Fin Podcast. I am your host, Sean Lavery, and thank you again for joining me this evening. Hope everybody is staying warm out there, parts of the country, I'm sure. If you're anything like me, our water's frozen over at this point. There is still moving water, but for the most part, it's definitely not something you're going to do unless you're ice fishing here in Pennsylvania anyway, by me. But hopefully, I know there's some people down south still fishing. I saw my old co-host Ryan Milford getting out on the water today. I hope he had some good luck. But just wanted to welcome you all back to another episode. Tonight, I'm going to bring back a blast from the past, a voice that some of our longtime listeners will definitely recognize. He was a host here on Paddle and Fin before he left to kind of explore some other ventures, and happy to have back Mr. Sam Jones. Welcome back to the show, bud.
What's going on?
Everybody's like, oh my gosh, I know him.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Probably not. Like you said, maybe some of the old viewers, they're probably like, really? You brought him back? Hey, I never really left. I've just kind of been more in the background, just kind of watching and listening. It's a huge fan of Paddle and Fin. In fact, back here on that jug, you can't see it because the camera's blurred, but I got a big old Paddle and Fin sticker on that. Still love listening to you guys and supporting you guys. And in fact, I told you this prior to the broadcast or the recording here. Your show is one of my favorite shows to listen to on the network right now. So
well, I appreciate the kindness there, and once PNF family, always PNF family, man. So
that's right, exactly. Yeah, I'm glad to be back, man. Thanks for having me.
So what's been new with you? What's been going on?
Just really busy with work. Last year's fishing season ended kind of abruptly for me, and not the way I wanted it to. And then on the backside of that, got really busy with work. So I've been stuck in this office for months, since like August, it seems like, for the most part. And I'm really excited to get 2022's fishing season started. Like you said, it's iced over here right now. So hopefully late February, we'll start getting out on the water again. But business is good. Everything that I got going on is keeping me really busy, too busy. I haven't had a Red Bull in months, and I cracked one tonight because, as they say, I've been burning the midnight oil, and I need a little boost to get me through tonight.
I was sitting on the couch at 8:30 thinking, man, I'm just not sure I'm going to be up for this. But it always gets me going to sit down and talk fishing with people. So,
yeah, no rest for the weary, right?
Amen to that, man. So, well, all right, I'll throw out a little disclaimer tonight about the topic that we're going to talk about with Sam. It's actually pretty fitting for where I am at the moment, because I have a few coals in the fire, as you'd say. We're going to be talking about pro staff stuff, like how you go about reaching out and start, or kind of finding those opportunities, what those opportunities look like, and what is pro staff. There's definitely differing opinions out there on this topic, and it can become a very heated or divisive topic. So we're going to try and keep open minds and take a look at it from as many viewpoints as we can get. So generally that's what I'm looking for tonight, just to kind of maybe help people who are thinking about getting into the pro staff gig, figure out what it's all about, how to go about it, and, how to promote themselves and things like that. So.
Yeah. Fun topic. There's a lot to talk about there.
Right. So let's start by breaking down, what you consider pro staff. Because a lot of people think pro staff. They look at the word and say, "Oh, pro. Oh, I'm not good enough to be a pro, quote unquote." But the pro in pro staff doesn't stand for pro, right?
Well, here's the thing. At this point in the industry, there are so many different words and phrases and titles used. There's so many different definitions for each of those words, phrases, titles, that it's so muddied at this point that if you are operating on one singular definition of any of these things, you're probably doing it wrong, because it's like the Wild West. Um, Pro staff means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, um, from both the top, the companies who are, have these pro staffs, to the people who are in them. And even within the same pro staff, a lot of times the definition is different amongst the people in it. So that's the first thing. Don't operate with one singular definition. Understand the brand that you're going to work with or you want to work with, especially understand the brand that you are working with, to know what their meaning behind it, what their expectations are, what their definition of that term is. Pro staff typically means promotional staff. It means you are a member of the promotional team. And for your promotion of said brand, you receive X, Y, or Z. That can be a small discount. That can be a product. That can be cash. Typically speaking, though, when you start getting to free product and cash deals, you are a quote unquote sponsored angler. We often use the term sponsors, partners, brand partners. And a lot of people will say I'm sponsored, but sponsored implies, generally speaking, that you are, receiving something of value outside of just a discount. Again, this terminology, just in everything I just said, is very different across all brands. So you have to really kind of understand that. But just speaking in general term, pro team is often looked at as guys at the top of the sport, right?
Right.
Who are professional anglers. Now, professional angler doesn't mean that you fish tournaments. Professional angler can mean a lot of different things.
That you do a lot of media creation or content creation, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
it could be content creator. It could be, TV show host. It could be a guide or a captain. So I mean, you got so many terms out there, right? Ambassador, pro staff, pro team, and the list goes on and on. So yeah, the first thing, again, just to circle back, is don't have one singular definition or understanding.
Right, because it's going to vary from company to company. What one company
So much.
considers pro staff could be completely and entirely different than what another company
Yeah.
does.
And the whole thing is, no matter what level you're at, no matter what you call yourself, it's all about being a promoter. It's all about being a part of a promotional team for that brand. Your job is to influence other people. Your job is to drive traffic to the brand and their website. Pro staffing, what it looked like 10 years ago, very different than what it is. Heck, even 2-3 years ago. It's very different today. It's changing. It's evolving, just like everything in this digital world is, and it's really important to have a broader picture of this whole space.
No, that I think that's a really good way to break that down because as all like any industry, especially ours is growing in so many different areas, and that's what companies are looking for is not necessarily a boat with a sticker on the side of it, although that's definitely part of it. Or I want your name on my jersey right here. That it's going to be how do you build us up on social media? How do you help us at, the shows that we go to, and that kind of deal. It's how are you
Yeah.
getting our name out there?
Right. And even now today, the shows, because of, we won't mention the unspeakable, right? But because of that, the shows aren't happening. They're not happening at the same intensity. The crowds are not the same.
Right.
So,
Marketing
going to
has to find a
expos,
way. Right.
right? Going to expos and working expos, that's not even really something that's super intriguing to a company at the moment. To some, again, it differs. You have to kind of know, you have to know your audience, and the brand that you're working for. So,
Right. Obviously, ICAST, actually happened for once, and it was great to be
right.
back there. But in the meantime, companies found a billion other ways to get their name out there, and that's the side of the business that's really jumping. I mean, if a company can reach, the a million people by social media versus however many they can funnel through the crowds at
Right.
an expo, it's exponentially more, and in many ways almost easier to reach people that way. So
Yeah. Well, shows are great. They're a good little burst every year. They traditionally happen in a short window of time. But you're right. Marketing efforts and social media advertising, utilizing staff and influencers is a year-long process, which it has far more benefits to it.
Right. So when you have someone like myself who right now has nobody, and you know the first opportunity I had along, I mean, besides, like, Paddle and Fin has sponsors, right? So I
Yeah.
kind of consider, I do try to promote those brands as much as I can, just because they do, help me do what I do every day. But as far
Right.
as specific opportunities for myself, I recently had an opportunity where one of the brands that we've had on the show before, kind of, one of the gentlemen I spoke to posted on his social media saying, "Hey, my company is looking for potential pro staff members for this year." So I shot the email address, a brief thing saying how I thought I could help, and I got an offer back. So I'm still kind of mulling that over, trying to decide if that's something I want to get into. But is that generally how the process works, or is it more you potentially reaching out to companies that you want to work with? What's your experience like that in the
Well,
past?
it's a little bit of everything now. I mean, you know, it's a guy finds a brand and he goes to their website and he sees a pro staff tab, clicks on it and applies. It's a guy makes a post. Companies run an ad anymore. A lot of companies will. In fact, I've done it for my clients. Do it for my clients today. We run ads saying, "Hey, we're looking for pro staffers. Please apply." And then a pro staff director goes through your application. They give you a call or an email, and they approve you. Some of those systems are automated. I'm not gonna tell the world whose systems are and aren't automated. Sometimes it's pretty obvious.
Right.
Sometimes it's a hybrid. Sometimes it's a hybrid. But sometimes you just apply and immediately you're approved for a position. There's
Okay.
pros and cons to that.
Right.
So it varies. So it can be that you make a connection at an expo that you go to or at a tournament, or something along those lines. Sean, I'm going to throw a question to you. You say you don't have a pro staff position right now. You're not on one.
Right.
How long have you been tournament fishing?
Seriously, probably about 2 years. I kind of ghosted the tournament scene the first year. I signed up but never fished any tournaments, and then the last 2 years I've been definitely getting more and more involved. And actually, this year I'm kind of helping run our local kayak anglers events. So
Amazing. That's awesome, dude.
yeah, my involvement's definitely increasing as I get more and more into the sport. So
Well, I'll actually commend you for not being on a pro staff yet.
well, that's kind of the thing, and I've talked to so many people who, and I totally want to be that guy who says, I'm not going to just jump on a team to be on a team. I want it to be a product I really believe in. And that's kind of why I picked the one I believe, because I believe in the way I fish, the areas that I fish. This product will be something I'll be able to easily spotlight because I know it'll work. I have experience with it working. And I just have a high confidence level in my ability to use it successfully and to promote it that way. And that's why I've kind of waited so long and didn't really necessarily want to jump on a bandwagon for something that I knew or that I had any question that I might not be able to properly promote. So
Yeah, that's key, man. There's this natural, sorry, I can't talk, natural progression that seems to happen amongst fishermen, especially in the bass fishing space. Um, and and I can admit I was guilty of this at a young age. You get into fishing, obviously, very early, bluegill, whatever. Then you get into bass fishing, and then quickly you want to get into the tournament scene, because once you find bass fishing and you start looking up things about bass fishing, almost all of it comes from the tournament scene, or at least
right,
it did. It's a little bit's changed recently, but for the most part. And so you want to get into tournaments, whether that be as a co-angler, a boater, if you happen to have a boat, or the ability to get one, or kayak now. And the minute you get into tournaments, you start seeing the logos, the patches, the decals, the branded post, where people are tagging and hashtagging, and shouting out sponsors. And so immediately every angler who gets into the tournament scene says to himself, I have to be sponsored to be legitimate. I have to get sponsored to be relevant in the space. And so they do. They go and apply for every single pro staff out there, for any brand that they come across, whether they've even used it or not in a lot of cases, because they feel like that's what they're supposed to do. They don't know any better. And so it's actually refreshing to hear someone say, hey, I've been in the sport 2 or 3 years. I don't really have any sponsors. I wouldn't mind working for some brands that I love and, use on a daily basis, because you just don't hear that a whole lot. And that's the first thing I want everyone to do. If you're watching this, whether you are already on a couple pro staffs or not, like, before you go and apply, just ask yourself, why do I want to be on a team? Why do I want a pro staff for this company, or ambassador, or pro team, whatever it is? And really ask yourself that question, because if it's just because you think that's what you're supposed to do, or because other people do it, you're doing it for the wrong reason.
right, right. It and I know I've talked to quite a few different people who talk about it's totally a two-way street. It's what can you do for them, and what can they do for you, and when it's not like that, then there's something wrong with the situation, whether you're getting way more than you're giving, or vice versa. That's not the kind of agreement you want to have. You want it to be something that's mutually beneficial for you, or otherwise what's the point
Yeah,
of even doing it?
absolutely. Mutually beneficial for sure. There is something to be said for earning your keep too, right? So that scale, if you will, in the beginning, I mean, it's no different than, well, here, let me slow down a second. So in the beginning, you really want to show your worth. You want to prove your worth, right? So there's something to be said for coming into an agreement with a partner at a small discount and working your butt off. Work for the discount or the product or the deal that you want, right? So if you come in at 10% on a staff, 15, 20, 30, whatever it is, and you say to yourself, man, I want to be pro team. I want to get paid. Work as if you are a pro angler, not a paid angler, not a 10% angler, and you'll get there if that's what you want.
Right,
It's also important to understand kind of where you're at in the space, right? Christine Fisher is not likely to take, I'm just going to make some assumptions here. Maybe I shouldn't use names, but someone like Christine Fisher, right, is
right,
probably not likely to take a discount deal.
right,
At this point in her career, she is one of the most recognizable faces in fishing, not even just kayak fishing. I mean, she's on Bass University. People know her in the bass boat world. She's won tournaments. She's been consistent. She's done a great job of organically promoting products that she uses. And so it would not be advantageous for her to take a discount deal.
right,
But someone like yourself, Sean, just getting in, you've never worked with a pro staff company before, you don't have an extensive tournament career, and let's assume that you didn't do this podcast thing, because that's actually something that adds a lot of value to
right,
you as a person in the industry. But let's just assume you're just a typical guy outside of this podcast. Then maybe a discount deal is where you start. But first, don't do it for the discount. Don't do it for the free product. Do it because you love the product and you want people to know about it and you want to share that and you think that that brand is great and you want to help them succeed. You know, um, when we help other people succeed, when we help bring success to other people, success finds us. Right. So
Right.
that's an important part of this whole conversation is like actually kind of dig a little bit deeper, get up past the superficial side of things,
Right. Right.
and evaluate it. Like why do I want to do this, and where do I want to go with it?
I think that's a really good point because if you get into it for the wrong reasons, it's going to be work, not that it isn't work all the time, that it obviously takes effort, but if you're doing something that you love and in the meantime can also promote, products that you love and show how they benefit you, I think that it's going to be easier for you in the long run to keep going with something. You're not going to burn out as quickly because it's not like something, oh, I have to do this. It's something you're going to want to do, and it'll just be that much easier for you to do it on a regular basis, and also make the quality of it there because you can fake it for a little bit, but eventually people are going to figure out that you're just kind of paying lip service for something if you don't truly have a heart behind it or believe in what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, and this is a whole nother podcast, is just understanding how to actually promote a product, right, in a way that people will engage with it and maybe even potentially become a customer. I mean, you can promote a product a lot of ways. It's actually just going to do the opposite of what you're intending to do. You're going to drive a lot of people away, and that the tone. Okay, so the tone of how you promote, that changes all the time. The way we promoted products in 2019 is far different than the way we promote products in 2022. There are certain staples, there are certain things that continue, right, that are tried and true methods, but for the most part, I mean, it's almost like every quarter we're seeing anymore a new trend in how people promote products and how people respond to that promotion. So you know,
What are some examples of that you're talking about? Just to give the people who don't have a great idea of the different ways you can promote. What kind of some examples of those that you can think of?
yeah. So a lot of it's sales based. I don't want to get too technical in this conversation. I mean, I guess if you want to, we can.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
was just curious,
but
just what kind of different
yeah,
things you're talking about. Because like
so
when I think of the Facebook post or an Instagram post, that kind of thing. It's pretty basic stuff. Um, I have the opportunity where I actually have a platform where I can speak about things on a semi-regular basis. So that's one thing that
yeah,
have that not everybody does. So
be real. I mean, that's the first tip and trick. Be real. Don't oversell. Don't, push something. Nobody responds to shared posts really anymore, which is a whole nother topic again about Facebook and Instagram and the algorithm and all that. But, tournament recaps are cool, mentioning the products and stuff that you use, but like you have to add some value somewhere. Okay. So, or create some sort of conversation where value will be added within the comments of your post or whatever. But just simply saying, hey, putting up a product picture off of a website and saying, hey, go buy X product doesn't work. People
right,
try to do that sometimes still. And honestly, even just posts specifically about one product only generally just do not do well anymore.
okay,
The best thing you could do. So let's use a crankbait for an example. Okay, you've got a crankbait company out there that you work with. Let's say it's a Strike King or any other, right? You take a picture of the product, you can make a post about that product and say, hey, go check it out. I love this product. It's so awesome. This is my favorite one. It's the KVD 1.5 in Sexy Shad, right? Or maybe it's a specialty item like a balsa crankbait or something along those lines. You could do that. And there will be people that don't like it because it's a good photo. If it's a good photo, there'll be people that will comment on it because they have a fondness for that bait as well. But if you really want to get people thinking about it and stop the scroll and get new traction on it, offer some advice with it. So talk about how, hey, I was faced with X, Y, and Z conditions today. It was tough fishing. I'm sure many of you have experienced this. This is what I used to catch fish. I was fishing in X, from 5 to 8 foot of water around a stump field. And you just mentioned the crankbait, but the post isn't about the crankbait. The post is about your experience. The post is about, a tip or a trick, right?
Right.
And you can get as long-winded with it or short with it as you want, but that's organic, right? That's what they call organic placement. You're mentioning the rod, the line, you're mentioning the reel, the speed ratio, and that lure. It's not just solely about that product.
Right.
There's time and place for all of it too, but that's just one brief example. I'd much rather learn about why you love the bait and how you use the bait than just hear you say I love it.
Right. And have it rammed down your throat. Hey, try this bait. But if you see
and
me,
then everybody just sharing the same post over and over again, like
right.
Strike King makes a post and then all their pro staffers, go and just share it. Like that doesn't.
Well, if you think about what's
bring
effective
value.
for you, what makes you go want to buy bait, and what makes me want to go buy bait is when I hear somebody else being successful and they can show me, hey, this is how I used this bait, and this is how I made it work for me, and this is the success that I had on it.
Right.
When you can see it actually, when you get down to all those crazy things where oh, I want to see the bait hanging out of the fish's mouth, or I know you didn't catch it on that bait. It gets into crazy territory, but it definitely, that's what sells a product to me. Not, they always say, a lot of products today are designed to catch fishermen, not fish, or fishermen, not fish.
Yeah.
And, that's exactly, a certain a tactic that, they is obviously successful. But that's not the way I kind of, that when I see that kind of stuff, it makes me cringe, because to me, that's not how I want to sell a product. So,
yeah, it can. It definitely can make you kind of turn off to a brand. And a lot of times brands don't want that either, but there's this assumption amongst promotional staff that they do. And it's just kind of been perpetuated over the last several years. Anglers created the monster that is pro staffing. There's a lot of negative connotation behind it, and there's a lot of negative space or thought process around companies and how they've utilized them. But anglers are the one that created the problem. They're the ones that have got it to the point where it is now. And I think we're in a space and time in the industry where companies are starting to reevaluate it a little bit. Anglers are definitely reevaluating it, and it's kind of shifting a little bit there. But yeah, it's super important to have a good understanding and not just post to post. Actually, have a reason. Have something to share. Be social. It's funny. We're all on social media all the time, but no one's actually social. Right? They just scroll and like and post with no meaning, versus actually engaging with people and commenting on other people's stuff and having conversations. Like that's what social media is for you to be able, when you're not face to face with someone, be able to engage with them and have conversation and have a community. And a lot of times we fail to do that. And it's the basic principle of the platform we're on.
Yeah. No,
except for TikTok. TikTok is solely about you scrolling.
Yeah, sometimes that gets lost in the translation of things. People forget that that is the point of everything, is to have a dialogue. It's not like It's not meant to be a one-way medium. You know what I mean? Uh,
Absolutely.
and in the host chat this week, actually, we had an interesting conversation on another thing not to do, and that was completely trash another sponsor's product. You know what I mean?
Oh,
And
this is a pet peeve of mine.
we
Oh my
just
goodness.
we were like, somebody posted up just an example, and look at this guy totally tearing down the competitor when and
Talk about
that's
a cringe moment.
yeah, that's not how you want to sell a product by destroy or attempting to destroy another product.
There is no quicker way, in my opinion, to get yourself thrown off of a pro staff and to get yourself um, a bad reputation in the community. You know, you, like, again, a lot of people do this. They get on pro staffs to get recognized and to feel like they have some clout, to be respected in the community. And then you see them go and do stuff like that. And it baffles me, why guys do that and gals. It's a really negative thing for the entire industry, not just the brand that you are bashing, or the brand you're trying to promote through bashing is really losing, because all you're doing is just bringing their competitors to the limelight, and
Right.
then two, you make yourself look like a fool. There's enough room in this space for everyone. No one goes to market with a product that they don't believe in and think is something that people need and want. No one is intentionally putting bad product out there. No one is trying to, run a bad business. Like, everyone is doing their damnedest to to create a great product that people want and will like. And of course, it's to make money as well.
Right.
I mean, it'd be a fool not to think that, but to go out there and bash these other brands is ridiculous. I work with Biz Baits. That's a company that I strongly believe in. I've used their product. I've won a lot of money using their product. But does that mean that Strike King and any Z-Man doesn't make a good product? No. Does that mean that I don't use other products? No. That just means that the majority of the product that I use in most situations, the thing that I have the most confidence in is Biz Baits. The brand that I believe in, the people I believe in, the people that are part of my community is Biz Baits. And I want to share that with people. I want people to use their product. I want people to get enjoyment out of using their product and catch more fish. Try something new. So I share that. But I'm not going to tell you, hey, you shouldn't use Z-Man. I'm not going to tell you, oh, Z-Man. No. They're great. They're great products. That's why they're in the industry.
Right.
That's why you know their name.
Right.
Um,
Same with
so,
kayak companies. It seems like that's one of the most heated
in
debates.
our space for sure.
Yeah, and it's just crazy. I'm like, hey, there's no single best kayak out there. I love my Outback. I think it's a great kayak, but just because I love it and it works great for me doesn't mean that it's going to work great for everybody else. And I certainly understand. I'm definitely on the smaller end of gentlemen. I'm not a huge guy, and if you're a big, strong, 250-pound guy, maybe an Outback is going to be the last thing that's going to work good for you. And you're going to tell me, oh, that's a kayak. I can't make heads or tails out of that kayak. So I think that's where it really bugs me, is when somebody just bashes a name just because it's a name. It baffles me because, obviously, we're all unique individuals, and, we fish different ways. We fish different bodies of water. There's so many different products out there that will work entirely different for one person than it will for another. That's why it really doesn't make sense for me, to bash a product, because there's obviously somebody out there using it successfully. So,
yeah, it's amazing that there's there's the two polar opposites of this space, and it's the bashers, and then it's like the oversellers, right? And sometimes those are one and the same person. But man, you are so right. When it comes to kayaks, I don't understand why everyone is so critical of each other. There's obviously the conversation that always comes up is like Hobie against the world and the world against Hobie. Hobie's terrible, or Hobie's amazing. Bonafide's the same way. There's a lot of people, like everyone knows that I'm in a Bonafide and I love Bonafide. I'm not sponsored by them. I have no affiliation to them, other than the fact that I work with a local kayak shop that sells them and that I own them and love them. It works for me. I like things compartmentalized. I like having the ability to have a lot of storage. I love having the big open space in the hall to put an extra rod or two, because I like to carry way more rods than I should, way more tackle than I should. I love the dry pod in the middle of the kayak, so my screen isn't on the side. I hate having my screen on the side of my kayak. All these, there's different reasons why I love it, but that doesn't mean those are the same reasons that you'll love it. You may not like that kayak at all, and maybe Bonafide makes a kayak that you do like, or maybe they don't. Some people prefer that big open deck, fully customizable, like a new canoe, where
Right.
you have no compartments. Although they did release that pod that you can now, the aftermarket pod that you can install. By the way, I love that. Great job, New Canoe. Great boat, but big, wide open. It's fully customizable. You know what I'm saying? So
I always
there's
tell
different
people the same
things you
thing.
can.
I'm like, yeah, I had a Jackson Kusa HD before I got my Hobie. I would have
Yeah,
loved to keep it. Financially, I couldn't. I had to trade it in just to pay for my Hobie.
yeah,
And if I could have both boats right now, I would absolutely, because there's things about the Kusa HD that I absolutely loved. And like right now, I'm looking into a Crescent because now, and it couldn't be more different than the Hobie. I mean, it's not, it's paddle. It's not even pedal. And
sure.
so that, but there's things about that boat that I think are going to play really well in certain ways that I fish. So for me for someone to say that there's one kayak out there that does everything I needed to do or fits me perfectly, and all the others are junk because of it, I think it's just crazy. So
Yeah, it is. And so that's one type of what not to do, right? Is to be the basher. The
don't
other not
bash.
to do, yeah, don't bash. There's no one wins in that situation. And if you had to claim a winner, it probably would actually be the brand that you're trying to bash. And we won't go into whole detail why that is, but anyway, the other not to do is the overseller, right? And that's a fine line, right? I think a lot of people, and I'm probably guilty of it more than once myself, you kind of oversell sometimes. You kind of cross that line a little bit, and that's okay to cross it a little bit here and there. Like
Right.
that's going to happen, especially when you're super passionate about
I was just
something.
gonna say, if you're hyped about it, it's sometimes hard not to.
Yeah, it is. But then there's so who I am talking about though are the people who really all the time are super over the top, and this brand is amazing. Everything they do is perfect. They never make, there's no room for improvement. They never make a mistake. Every other brand can't even come close. They're not bashing anyone. They're literally just saying everyone else is crap. And they're way overselling the product, right? Well, that's not natural. That's not being real. That's not helping anyone again. So you you want to stay in the middle, right? You want to talk about the products that you love. You want to understand that there's other great products out there too that people can try and use and love as well. And
And
let
it's not
people
to
make
say
decisions.
right. You can compare without
Sure.
bashing. You can say, hey, this is what makes my product better than this product. We have this versus this. That's not what we're
Or
talking about here, but yeah,
Or, hey, in this situation, this is why I think this product excels. But if you're doing this, honestly, there is probably no better way to sell a product than to do exactly that. Say, hey, if you are an offshore guy who loves to carry a lot of tackle and use and have a lot of storage and keep things compartmentalized, You want to check out the SS123 with an XI or SS127 with an XI3 on the front, because you can spot lock out there in the middle of the lake on a hump, and you can crank for days and have 10 different rods with 10 different crankbaits set up. It's, okay, see, now I'm getting probably a little bit into overselling because I'm trying to sell the point of this, right? So know how to check yourself like I just did. But, to say that, like, this product I think is great if you're this kind of a person. But if you like fishing really swift, small rivers, you might want to check out X, Y, or Z. Now maybe the brand that you're supporting or partner with offers that product as well. Maybe they don't, and you mentioned another product. Okay, so what's going to happen is everyone who views that, who is a small river guy, they're going to go check out that product. But the majority of your viewership likely is like you. That's why they follow you. And they're going to say, oh, okay, that makes sense. And they're going to go look more into what you're talking about. Again, we preface this at the beginning of the show. There's a million different ways to do this, and everyone's going to have a different opinion on it. I'm not saying that my way is the highway. I'm just saying, if years of being on pro staffs and pro teams, if you want to say that, an influencer, creator, managing pro staffs as a director and pro staff manager, and doing social media marketing and advertising for companies, working in this space for years, this is what I've found to be successful.
Right.
And that's another thing, like, mimic success, mimic the people that are doing it the best. I think a lot of times, especially in the kayak space, people are kind of idolizing the wrong people. They're looking at the wrong people, and they're mimicking their success, and trying to, and it's not the right way to go about it.
Right. No, and when we talk about content creation, I always think of the clickbait kind of stuff, and that stuff drives me bonkers. And
but again, here's the thing, Sean, you have to keep in mind, everyone has to keep in mind, there's a difference between being an angler who is, just sharing experience and talking about that kind of stuff, and trying to become a professional YouTuber.
Right.
You want to be a professional YouTuber and make money in YouTube and be an influencer in that space. There are certain things you have to do just to get the algorithm to even notice you. It's not even so much about, what I'm saying? Clickbait works. That's why people use it. Right. A lot of times, honestly, I don't like social media. I don't want to be on social media. Well, I shouldn't say I don't want to. Obviously, I do. I'm in it. But I'm not a big fan of social media in general and how it's used and that sort of thing. But I see the value in it, and I'm on it because it's the business that I work in.
I was just going to say, it is a business at the end of the day.
It is. So don't get upset with people for using clickbait. If it's not attractive to you, that's okay. Again, that whole, don't hate on other people. They're oftentimes doing what they feel like they have to do, or in some cases, they actually do have to do that. Like, now, right, you can go to the extreme, but if you don't use something that's somewhat clickbait, again, that definition gets muddied and misconstrued and misunderstood. But if you don't use some sort of title that's going to get people to stop scrolling and grab their attention and make them click through to your video or blog or whatever, it's not going to get clicked, it's not going to get seen, and then nobody wins. So yeah, you have to find a balance. But
that's true. That's a good way to look at it, I guess. I am the pot calling the kettle black in that case. So,
well, a lot of it is people will use clickbait titles that have zero relevance to the actual content. That's where the problem is, versus being creative and using a clickbait-ish title that is relative to your content,
Right.
And I can't think of any one particular example right now that's obvious, but everyone's seen it, right? You see a title, you're like, oh, let me check that out, and then you go watch the video, and maybe like a brief moment in that video, they reference anything relative to the title.
Right.
Versus, the opposite of that, where
Right.
it's still clickbaity title, it still grabs your attention, it still gets you to click through, but the content is the majority of the content is about what their title describes.
Right.
So
No, that makes sense. And I think along with that, another no is doing something, whether it's illegal or something like that, to promote a product is also, if you're trying to promote a product, that's the wrong way to do it. Like, what comes to mind is the YouTube videos where they're like, oh, we snuck into this pond and or we got kicked out of this area, or that.
Yeah.
I don't know how sponsors would continue to sponsor something like that, but it obviously happens because that's a popular way to sell a video on YouTube.
Hey, and brands are like people. Brands have their own core values, they have their own personalities. So a company is a brand, right? Paddle and Fin is a brand, and it has its own personality. And then within that brand are these different shows that have their own personalities. And so some brands, they're gonna be okay with that kind of stuff. Other brands aren't. And so knowing your audience and stay true to who you are, find the brands who
Represent your values.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all. Just focus on you and not the other stuff.
Right. So. Okay. Well, I think that's definitely, because that's when that all goes back to being true to yourself. If you find a company that represents the values that you do, then that's you're totally being true to yourself. Versus if you kind of look the other way for things that you might not necessarily condone, but you're trying just to get your name in, that might not be the best fit.
Yeah. So. Yep.
Well, I wanted to reach out or talk to you a little bit about like what you do for anglers, because I know that's another tool that can definitely help in the pro staff game, where you're building these portfolios and stuff for people and helping them promote themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So unfortunate side effect of everybody wanting to be on a pro staff is that these brands are inundated daily with pro staff requests. And some brands, their model is we'll take on anyone and everyone, or we'll take on the majority of people as long as you're not doing something crazy, off the wall, And then some brands are going to have a moderate size staff and some a very small staff. But it doesn't matter what size the company is, from a guy who's just making some baits in his garage, just started last week, to a guy or a company that's been around forever, like an Abu Garcia, Shimano, something along those lines. They're getting dozens, hundreds, thousands of pro staff requests daily. As a pro staff manager for multiple brands, I can tell you, like, the amount of emails you get requesting pro staff, school team sponsorships, tournament sponsorships, it's unreal. It's overwhelming. And you really, truly, you want to help everyone. You'd love for everyone to be accepted and to be approved and send, but you have limited resources. It's really hard if you've not had a face-to-face or a phone call or a Skype meeting or something to establish a connection. It's really hard to stand out in an email. The first thing you need to do is know how to write a decent email that's going to get them to stop and read what you have to say. The next thing is attaching some assets, attaching some files in a resume, a media deck, content that you've created, something above and beyond the application or the initial request or whatever. That often gets overlooked. 90% of all applications that I have seen over the last several years are almost identical. They almost all state the same thing in a just a slightly different way. But it's just, I love fishing. Well, most of them start out, I've been fishing my whole life. Then the next point they make is that they love fishing. Then the third point they make is that they're a tournament angler. Some will go into great detail about that. Some will just kind of leave it as I fish a lot of tournaments. And then the next one will be, I'd love to represent your product. I'd love to work for your product. I'd love to pro staff with you. Some variation of those four things. Every single email.
Over and
90 plus percent of them are the exact same thing. My name is, I've been fishing my whole life. I love fishing. I fish tournaments, and I'd love to partner with your brand. I'd love to work for you. I'd love to pro staff with you. So when you see those emails like that, the only next thing you can do is look at social media. And when you look at social media, man, I'm telling you, that is the biggest disappointment on going through applications for these brands, because you get on social media and you're hoping that you're going to find someone who A, creates great content, B, knows how to promote products, and C, loves your brand. Or maybe that's number A, loves your brand. And then you get on their social media, you see nothing about your product, nothing about your brand. They've got a bunch of stupid memes. They're talking about politics. They're talking about what they had for dinner. Nothing about fishing. Nothing. But yet they're talking about how they're a tournament angler and they love fishing. But you go to their social media and you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know that they love it. It baffles me. And hey, look, I've got people on my staffs that are guilty of this. Like, for every fishing post, they've got 30 things that have nothing to do with the outdoor space. Not even hunting, hiking, camping, nothing. Right. And so you ask yourself, do you really love fishing? Because I can't tell. Like, your social media is your resume today. Even in corporate America, if you go and apply for a job, which, by the way, before I got into all this, I interviewed a lot of people, hired people. As soon as they walked out of the room, or before they came in the room for an interview, I'd already been through your social media, or I was going to go through your social media if I thought you were even close to being an acceptable candidate. Companies now, even as you apply, are requesting your social media profile.
Right.
And with that being said, it's amazing to me. You get on there and somebody who's applying for a promotional staff position isn't even talking about social media. Even worse, you'll have guys who have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, all of it. And you check every single one of them, and not a single platform is about fishing, or majority of it's about fishing. So in what world do you think you're going to get people to come to a brand?
Right. No,
like,
and
that's what
I think that's huge. And you know, that's why I think it's really important. You know, they always say what you put on social media lives forever,
yeah.
As much as you know, there's a time and a place, and there's certain people who use social media for some of those other platforms. Like, I have a friend of mine who, a coworker, he told me right off the bat, he's like, you're probably not going to like my social media pages because I said, hey, do you want to, I'll friend you when I, get home. And he's like, you probably don't want to, friend me, because I basically use my social media just to post my political leanings. And I was like, okay, maybe I don't need to follow you then, because, that's not something I'm necessarily interested in seeing. So.
Yeah, I wish people didn't do that, period. I don't know of any lifestyle, career, or anything where posting a bunch of social media things about politics in the way that people do is going to help influence anything. But I don't know.
I've had some good conversations, like where actually it's back and forth, but it almost always evolves into something not as pleasant. So.
The unfortunate thing about social media is that it is used for all the wrong reasons. And that's why it's so refreshing as a pro staff manager when you get an application and you do click on the link. By the way, one of the best things you can do outside of having someone like myself or even yourself just putting together a Word document, like you don't have to come to me and pay me to do it. I'm happy to have your business, happy to help you make a professional looking resume or media deck. But even if you just put a Word document together that explains who you are as an angler and a promoter, that's already going to set you aside. But actually linking people to your social media, a lot of people don't understand how to do this. And I think a lot of times people are just lazy and don't even Google. Like, if you don't know how to do something in 2022, Google it or YouTube it. And within 10 minutes, you should be an expert on it because it's just that simple anymore. Now, of course, some people learn from watching, some people learn from reading, some people, whatever. So it's going to vary by person, but Google it or YouTube it and you'll know instantly how to do it. It's amazing. It's 2022. But here's the thing that happens a lot. So a guy or a gal will apply for a pro staff position. They'll use that same email that everyone uses. And then you get to the part in the application where it says your Facebook, your Instagram, yada, yada, yada. Well, they don't actually link. So if I put Sam Jones in my application and I go to Facebook and I type in Sam Jones, unless I'm already a friend with this person, right? Mm-hmm. There's going to be 50 of them. I'm not likely to find you. And it's very likely that half of them will have a picture that looks like you could be an outdoorsman or a fisherman. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's impossible. So learn how to share your URL link, the web address to your profile, so that when you click on that in the application, boom, there it is. There's Sean. I know who you are. Instantly, I go to your profile and I see 3 or 4 fishing posts and then maybe something random or whatever. I don't care. And then the next thing I see is, oh, you're a podcaster. Great. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Do that. Do that and you will stand out from the crowd. And then you will you'll be memorable. You'll be memorable, right? So once you're on the pro staff, so that's the first step, getting in. And then the second step is, how do you not get lost amongst all the other staffers? How do you stay relevant, but not an annoyance, not a nuisance? Because that's easy to do too. How do you stay relevant, and how do you stay on the forefront of their mind? Because when companies do go through these little ups and downs of where, hey, we need to get a little bit heavier handed on our promotion. We need to get a little bit heavier handed with our influencers. You're going to be on the forefront of their mind. They're going to say, okay, Sean, look, man, you've been doing a great job. Love everything you're doing. You always are in communication with us. You're posting great content. Love what you're doing with the podcast. We really need to double down on X, Y, and Z. Can you do that for us? And in return, we'll give you name it, whatever the offer is, right? Like,
right.
That's so many people that get on a staff, they get the logo instantly. Somebody gets on staff. Hey, can I get a logo for my jersey? So that's what's most important. All right. Okay. Yep. And that also goes back to, that's what people think, right? They think instantly, like, this company, they want me to have their logo big on my jersey. I gotta do that. I gotta get the file. Introduce yourself. Tell me more about you. Show me some stuff that you've done. Send me some pictures that you've taken of our products and fish that you've caught on our products, and say, hey, if you guys would love to use some of this product photography that I have, or some of these shots, I'd be happy for you to share them, that sort of thing. Is there anything I can do? Is there any particular content that you guys are working on? Do you guys have any sales coming up that you need to get some content ready for? Like, boom, you're in. If you do that, you are in. I'm telling you, you're going to go from whatever discount you're at to a higher one. You're going to go to free product. You're going to go to paid at some point. If you do those things and go above and beyond. And then when you're not busy creating and doing stuff for them, you should be busy on growing your social media following, and growing your engagement. You don't have to have 10,000 followers. More impressive is comments. More impressive than how many followers or likes you have are the comments. Because when I can see you get a lot of comments on there, I know the algorithm sees that and they're putting your stuff out to a lot of new people. So it's not just your small little audience. It's a lot of new people are seeing your content daily. It also lets me see how you're able to engage with people and communicate with people as a salesman or as a promoter, an educator, right? Like we love in the pro staff management space, we love educators because those guys, they sell 10x what anyone else does. They 10x what any top tournament angler does. They 10x what any influencer does. That just promotes product or is funny or whatever. Teacher, I mean, this is why like a guy like Fluke Master, right?
Right.
That's why he blew up, because he teaches people. That's just one example, right?
Right. No. Armando just had him on last week, and they talked about just that thing that, because, when you can show someone, not just tell them something is the best, but when you show someone, how to use something, and like I said, like when that's what sells me, when I see somebody using something and being successful at it, and I think I can do that same thing, that's
Yep. It's important to understand who you are as a promoter, like your personality and your ability as well. Some people just can't take photos and video. They just shouldn't do it. They could learn. I don't want to say they can't do it. You can do anything, honestly. Like I wasn't allowed to take photos in my family 6-7 years ago, handful or more years ago. No one would have ever said, "Hey Sam, take a photo." First person they're going to call on to take a photo now is going to be me.
Right.
No one would have ever asked me anything about graphic design, that sort of stuff, right? First person they would call on now. I didn't get into that space. I didn't go to college for that stuff. I learned it because I was like, oh, okay, this is a necessary tool. This is something that the brands that I support need. And it's just evolved. You get better and better with time. But like put some focus and some energy into it. Like again, Google, YouTube, how to take better photography with an iPhone. You can get lost in hours of videos that teach you how to take better photography, because so much of it's crap, just to be straight honest. Like a lot of it is just, it's not good. And that's why people get so frustrated. They're like, oh, I do all this posting and tagging and nobody shares my stuff. They don't use it. It's because it's not good. It doesn't match their style, right? Try to duplicate what they're putting out. When you go to a brand and you see they're posting a very similar style all the time, right? Similar edit to their photos. Try and duplicate that if that's what you're trying to do. If you're trying to be unique and do your own thing and you don't care about people sharing it, then that's another story. You still need to have great content, though. You still need to have quality imagery, quality video. Although videos changed a little bit, people seem to be actually responding to the more less edited versions, right? Because of TikTok. In fact of the matter, TikTok has changed everything. But and that's why you see Instagram and YouTube and all this stuff responding the way that they are to it, with the Reels and YouTube Shorts and all that. Again, another conversation for another day. But figure out who you are. Are you the funny guy? Are you a Gerald Swindle? Right. Are you the fast talking funny guy? If you are, exploit the hell out of it. Do that. Are you the really serious, really thoughtful, deep diver, like blog writer kind of guy? If you are, do that. Are you the guy who can make everything so simple a kindergartner can understand it? Can you teach the world to fish? Right? That's our boy Gene Jensen's motto, right? Like,
Yep.
Figure out what it is you do well and exploit the hell out of it. Don't try to be like everyone else, but do mimic the success of the people in your space. So again, if you're the funny guy, Gerald Swindle, right? If you're that type of person, He's a great person to look up to. There's other people like him in the space. Look up to them. Don't copy them, but mimic their success. Oftentimes the funny Gerald Swindle guy is trying to be the really serious blog writer, or the really serious blog writer is trying to be the really funny YouTuber, and it doesn't work. It doesn't come off natural. People don't relate to it because they know it's not you. And that's a big problem that people have, that they're modeling after personalities that they're not,
right.
Yeah, don't match them.
No, and that again, it all goes back to being true to yourself. If you can do that and find the space that fits you. Like, I am not a crazy serious tournament angler. I do that. The tournament aspect for me is more camaraderie than anything. There is a competitiveness to me, but not to me, to be a really serious tournament angler. That's got to be what drives you, is the competition. And to me, that's not what drives me. I'd rather, just go fishing with a whole bunch of group of guys. If I happen to do better than someone, great, but it's not going to kill me if I don't. And, but I love the conversations that I have before or on the ramp and that kind of thing. And that's what drew me to the tournament world. And so that's the other thing I was going to say is don't don't feel like you have to, hit a certain specialty. You don't have to be a tournament angler. Like I think of like Mike McKinstry, he's not a tournament guy. Does he fish tournaments? I'm sure he does probably, but that he has a space that's all his own, the things that he does, they're meaningful and so don't feel like you have to be, there's a hole that you have to fill in, that kind of thing.
Let's blow that door wide open if we can real quick. Okay. So some of the best promoters, influencers out there, brand promoters out there are not tournament anglers. In fact, very few are. There are a handful of guys in the tournament space at the top that get a ton of traffic, right? So here's what people have to understand. Online traffic to a website, okay? What percentage of online traffic to a website do you think converts into a sell? And we'll just stick to the outdoor space. What do you think a typical average conversion rate is? So percentage of people who visit a website daily purchase something.
Wow. I'm going to say conservative. I'd say 10%. That might be way high.
That is way high.
Okay.
Way high. Like industry standard hovers between 1.5% and 3%. Depends on your niche and depends on the size of your business and that sort of thing. But like 2%, 2.5% is a good number to have for a conversion rate on your website. Generally speaking, some people have to visit a website 3-4 times before they purchase. Some brands do it better than others. Don't get me wrong. Some brands have way higher conversion rates. Certain times of the year, Black Friday, you release a new product, whatever, those things, conversion rates go way up, okay? But generally speaking, year over year, that's what we see in online, okay? So what does that tell you?
That clicks matter.
Clicks matter. You have to drive a ton of traffic to a website when you are selling a product for $5, average cost of a product in the fishing industry, right? When we're talking about bait tackle kind of thing, right? Obviously jackhammers, that doesn't count. But, a crankbait, a standard bag of plastics, a bag of hooks, $5, right?
Right.
So if only 2.5% of people, and the average order, let's say, is somewhere around $50 to $75, right? Like you got to drive a ton of traffic to a website in order to be successful. And that's the job of a pro staffer. Your job is to drive traffic to the social medias and to the website. People go to the website, then they go to the social media. People go to the social media, then they go to the website. It's a revolving door, right?
Right.
That's your job as a promotional staffer, is to represent the brand and drive traffic. So you you've got to find ways to do that, and you got to keep that in mind um, going down this journey. Like, it's so important to say, like, how can I help a brand get more traffic, more people through their door? You know what I'm saying? And you and I are very different. Like you just said, you're not super competitive. I am. If I'm not fishing a tournament, I'm not having near as much fun. It's like not even the same thing. It's a super high when I'm in a tournament versus I still love fishing and I want to do it. But the best guys aren't even tournament guys. There's just a handful at the top that have a huge audience. But like, who are some of the most recognizable people in all of fishing to you?
When I think of it, I think of like Gene Jensen and like the content creators. Like that's when
Gene Jensen. No, but love him, hate him, whatever I don't care. Chad Hoover. How many tournaments in our space? How many tournaments has Chad Hoover fished lately?
None.
That you know of. Zero. Right? Is he a professional angler?
No.
Well, not a tournament angler.
Not a tournament angler.
You do not have to be a tournament angler to be a professional angler. That's the space he works in. Now, you could say he's a professional promoter or whatever, but he's an angler. He has a TV show about fishing, right? Mark Zona. Mark Zona, you know that name, right?
Yes.
He's an announcer for Bassmaster. He has TV shows. You know, Michael Iaconelli could never fish another tournament in his life. He's got Bass University. He's got Ike Live. He's got TV shows. He's got blogs and websites and articles, yada, yada, yada. The list goes on. Foundations. He runs a marketing company for other anglers. That's actually, to be honest with you, Mike Iaconelli is one of the guys that I've kind of modeled myself after. Okay. Who's another great example? His name's not coming to mind right now, but he used to be an announcer for Bassmaster. Wave the towel. He's got the podcast now. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Canadian guy.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I
just saw him interviewed on another podcast. What was his name?
Yeah. Anyway, everyone knows who I'm talking about. He's listening to this as a bass head, right? He does not fish tournaments. He announces tournaments. He has a TV show. He's a hell of an angler. What brand wouldn't want to work with him?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if you are not a tournament guy, don't be a tournament guy. That's okay. You don't have to be relevant in the space of fishing. In fact, social media has made that possible. It used to be, unless you were fishing in tournaments or had a TV show, you weren't relevant in the fishing space. But because of social media, you can stand on the bank and make funny TikTok videos and be one of the most influential people in the space. Fat Cat Newton. Who knows that?
Love him or hate him,
right?
The Guggen guys, you know.
Well, all right. We're not now. Listen. Look, hold on. No, but you're right. You're exactly right. They exploited something that they knew that they did well and could do, and they exploited the hell out of it. And that's why they are who they are.
Right.
Your kind of content, as somebody who's not super competitive, right? You said, I love just going out and fishing with buddies, and I love hanging out at the boat dock and talking. I like those things too. But my biggest passion is the tournament side, right? And the business side, which is why you have me on here talking about the business side.
Right.
But your post, your videos should just be all about the experiences and the good time and the brotherhood and the chats, right? That should be, my videos should be about either tournament or about the business side. And that's an area of opportunity for me. I get on podcasts and talk about it. People call me all the time and ask for advice and email me and text me and message me, but I don't publicly speak or create content about it, to be honest with you. So that's an area of opportunity for myself. But I post more about tournaments and tournament preparation and tackle and equipment, because that's my area. That's what I exploit. But don't look at my social. If you're watching this, don't go look at my social media and use me as an example. I am the perfect definition of do as I say, not not as I do. I'm like the mechanic who turns wrenches for 10 hours a day at the shop and then goes home and his car's in the worst shape because he doesn't. I focus on my clients. I focus on the other stuff. I don't focus on my personal near as much. So do not use me as a perfect guiding example here. Some of what I do, you can maybe extract, but and use the point. Going back to the point, though, you're absolutely right. You can do a lot of good for a brand and yourself by not trying to be something that you're not.
Right. This is so much more than just a name or a picture on a jersey. Maybe 20 years ago that's what it was, but it's just not that anymore. There's so much more to it, and
I love it when guys wear hats and T-shirts and they make photos. But when you wear a hat and a T-shirt and there's no photo for anyone to use or see,
it's kind of worthless.
I mean, especially in 2020, 2021, where you're not even around a boat ramp with people. Like everything's virtual. There's not captain's meetings. There's not awards ceremonies. There's not this. There's not that. And let's face it, people all the time, they talk about in their applications and in their emails and stuff, they talk about all the conversations they have with people after the tournament, and they'll mention X, Y, and Z in their post-tournament speeches and stuff. Well, how many speeches do you have? And let's be real, most of the time after people have practiced for 3 days and fished a tournament for 2 days, at the awards ceremony, unless they're waiting for their name to be called because they won money, the only thing they're thinking about is getting home to their wives, where they're going to eat, get home to their bed, taking a hot shower. They really aren't paying attention to what you're saying up there a lot of the times. Handful of people will. But here's what they do. They'll go home. They'll see their wives. They'll have a good meal. They'll have a hot shower. They'll get up the next day. They'll go to work. And while they're at work, they're going to be like, hey, Sean won that tournament. Let me see what Sean was up to.
Exactly.
And they're going to go to your social media and they're going to see what you have to say. And if you don't have anything to say, that's it. They'll forget about it.
Right.
But if you do have something to say, they're going to read it. And if they like it at all, they're going to follow you. They're going to like it. They're going to comment on it. And they're going to come back the next tournament. Even if you don't win, they're going to come back the next tournament. Just see what you did. How'd you do? What were you throwing? That sort of thing. Because they want to be successful. They want to know how you were successful. So don't preach about the in-person stuff anymore. That used to be the thing. It used to be, 10 years ago, even further. You sold the jersey. You sold the hat. I'll always wear your hat. Everything I do. Your jersey will be front and center. I'll put it on the truck and the boat wrap, and it'll be, everyone can see it. I drive X amount of miles. And to be honest, that still happens a little bit still, especially at the higher end when you're full body wraps and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But that's not really the pitch anymore. The pitch is more, hey, I'll have your logo and X, Y, and Z content and photos and these videos. Here's examples of what I've done with other brands or with your brand. That's the shift that's happening. And now video and not long form video, not YouTube, short video, reels, TikTok, stuff that I can use in stories, stuff that I can use for short video ads. That stuff is what companies need right now, because that's you have to be posting reels. You have to be posting short videos in order for the algorithm to help you in any way. And so companies need that. They need staffers to be creating that. So you need to become an expert in how to do that. That's where you're going to bring a lot of value to companies right now, is your ability to create attractive reels that will get people to stop their scroll, watch, save it, comment on it, and hopefully click through and go to a website.
Right. Awesome, man. Well, we've covered a ton of stuff, and I think for anybody looking to get into that game, it's going to be super helpful. Just to really summarize the be true to yourself. Be honest with yourself about why you're looking to get into that game. And then look for places where you can be yourself, but also and for companies that basically share your same kind of values. And when you find that match, see what you can offer them and what they can offer you, and
Yeah.
start from there. So
Start small. If you've never pro staff for a company, don't go apply for 10 companies. Find a company that you believe in, find a company that you can build a relationship and that you can learn from, who has the time to work with you and teach you, who have people in their space who can work with you and teach you. Find somebody in that. Once you're on a staff, a singular staff, don't go get on a bunch. Once you're on a staff, find the people who are like you, doing the best in that staff, and get advice, learn from them, build a relationship, and then move on. I'll tell you another thing. A lot of people don't realize, anglers think that this space is so big and that the kayak market or the fishing industry is so large. It is to an extent, but it's actually really small. These brands talk to each other. If you make a name for yourself with one brand, the other brands know about it a lot of times. If you make and that can go both ways.
I was just going to say that. Yep.
That can go both ways. There's also a lot of clicks. Just again, people, I can geek out on this, and I know we're probably running short on time, so I'll try and keep it short. Brands are personalities. Okay, they're just like us humans. They have their own personalities, and just like in a high school, a college, or your fishing club or whatever, there's cliques, right? There's little groups, and you're going to see that. And so when you get into one of these cliques, you're often going to find yourself on a couple other of their pro staffs, right? You're going to start kind of marrying together. And that can be a good thing for you, and it can be a bad thing for you. So be very cautious. Look at other pro staffers. Look at it, where, you'll have certain companies where, it'll be Sean's on X company on his Facebook profile, and then you'll see 6 others lined up underneath it. And then you start looking at people that he's connected to that are on the same, and it's the same 6, right? So these little cliques that get created, and you can get stuck in a box that way really quickly. And that's why I said, don't go just apply for a bunch of pro staffs all at once. Start with one, find the brands that you really like, really appreciate, do well for them, go above and beyond, because it's going to lead you to other things. If your goal is to work in this space and be an influencer and maybe do this full time, maybe become a full-time content creator, full-time angler, that sort of thing. If you have zero interest in that, then don't be a pro staffer, unless you just love a product so much that you just you don't care for the discount. You don't care about the recognition, anything. You just want to do it because you love the product. That's
Right.
okay.
Right.
That's okay. So yeah, it's a crazy time in the pro staff game, but there's the right way to do it. There's several right ways to do it, I will say. But a lot of people do it the wrong way.
All right, man. Well, that all being said, thank you for coming on, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to shout out your promotional sponsors and pro staff people. So, it would only
Absolutely.
be fair, right?
I appreciate that. I actually don't do the whole NASCAR pitch. That's not something that I do. I will say this: if you've gotten any value out of anything that I've said here tonight, feel free to go check out my social media profiles. I'm really easy to find at Jonesing2Fish. You can search Sam Jones Fishing probably on Google or YouTube and find other content that I've done with Paddle and Fin and some of the other organizations that I work with. But feel free to reach out to me. If you have any questions, comments, if you completely disagree with me and want to tell me that, I will be happy to listen to what you have to say, and maybe I'll change my mind. But if you check me out, you should know who I work with, and you should know what I'm about. And I'd much rather you do that than me just ramble off a bunch of pro staffs that I work with, or companies that I work with. Rather you just go check out the socials and interact with me. If you didn't find any value in anything I said tonight, then just check out Sean, because he's really awesome and you probably like him.
All right, man. Well, thanks again for everything. It was awesome to have you back on. Definitely we need you more around PNF more. We miss your voice. So
yeah, cool, I'm happy to be here. So maybe you guys will see more from me soon.
Hey, there you go. That sounds awesome. All right, guys. Well, be sure and check out Sam online, and I'll include some links in the show notes just to make it a little easier for you. That way we can try and get some clicks generated over that way. But thanks again for hanging out with us tonight. This has been the Bass Fishing for Noobs podcast on the Paddle and Fin Network, where we bring you the techniques, the tricks, and the tips to help you rip more lips. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in Northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com